This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Doing the job the American media maggots won't. Fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Here is, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, the Bloviating Zeppelin.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Network studios, the sumptuous and palatial studios in which I am currently ensconced at this very moment. You got to belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Flackbait is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted, kind of sort of seen over here. And the reason I mention that it's seen over here is because you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. That's where the chat room lives. Now, if you want to watch the show live, go to the SHR Media Facebook page or go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. And that's why I mentioned that you can see what's going on in the studio as I do whatever the fuck it is that I do around here. Oh, that's going to be an issue. That's going to be an issue. However, we don't water our crimes. We don't water our drinks, and we don't water our crimes. Remember that. Just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech, she is free, but the drinks, they are not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, don't forget to tip your waiter or your waitress. Tonight, the last show of the week in the Bloviating Zeppelin series. Tonight, by the way, it's Thursday, April 26th, almost the end of April already. The year of our Lord, 2018. And have I got the proverbial, this is a visual, have I got the proverbial assload of stuff to talk to you about tonight? Now, we spoke together at lunch today. I try to have lunch with Sean, the half owner now of the SHR Media Network. And because he's not around, and I like to find out what's happening with Sean. He couldn't make it yesterday because one of his kidlets was sick. And so today we went out to Beach Hut Deli. And while we're commiserating about all kinds of things, including the East Area Rapist, and I will get to that, we were talking about, I asked, is there something that we can do now with regard to the phone in the studio? And maybe I'm going way inside baseball too much, but if there's one thing that I wanted to do for SHR or to SHR, something like that, is I wanted the sound to be better. I wanted the sound to be not just better, but I wanted the sound to be really great. Well, I had an old RCA mic that I brought that was given to me from KFBK. And I also had, it's over there on the other table. It's an honest-to-God RCA. It's a beautiful RCA mic, a classic mic from the 1940s. And then there's a Shure 55S over there with a spit guard on it that I used to use, that used to be right here on the table, the red mic that I had. And then this is a Shure 7 SMB, I believe. And I'm also looking at a, what is that, Rode Procaster. And I wanted to get the sound up, but the thing that still tended to confound me was the call. I frequently like to have people call in. By the way, I'm sorry to tell you there's nobody going to be calling in tonight. It's just moi. I tried to see if I could get Jersey Joe enticed to come on the air so that we could hear some things from him, and I didn't get a response. So it's just me. You're stuck with me, okay? But in the process, I was talking about the phone calls. What can we do to increase the quality of our phone calls? And then we started looking at it. We from where we were having lunch at the Beach Hut Deli, we went over and had a Starbucks, and we continued talking about the phone call system because as it stands right now, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but the way the Skype system is wired into this board is I have to ask people kindly, hey, during the break, during the promo, could you make sure that you not yell out the word fuck at as loud as you can, or if the dog is barking or something like that, because I can't mute someone coming in this current system. So I have to ask them, while we're playing a promo, please be quiet, because the people in the background or the people listening are going to hear whatever it is that you say. So if you say that you just dropped a log in the toilet and then they hear it flush, well, guess what? That's going to come over and they'll hear it from your house, okay? So I'm just saying maybe you should use just a bit of discretion. Well, we finally found out, and we went and bought a telephone with conferencing and Bluetooth, and we figured out that okay, right, let me back up here. Let me be specific. I just bought the thing, okay? Sean figured out, as you would expect, not me, because I'm not the techno god around here. Sean figured out that with a little bit of Bluetooth work and the current board and something called a magic jack and the phone that's sitting over here that you can't see anymore, we might be able to make this whole phone thing work, and it's kind of complicated, and Sean didn't have the ability and wasn't available to tell me or show me how this thing works, but with luck, next week we'll have an honest-to-God, I kind of sort of swear, sort of maybe normal phone system. And boy, am I really looking forward to that. Because then
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
that way, during the break, I can mute a caller, and then they can yell and scream at the top of their lungs, God, that was a great piss, and no one will really care. And then also, the thing that I really wanted to make sure that I got was the ability, if I'm speaking to someone, if I'm talking to Dan Butcher, I'm talking to Carrie Baxter Donovan, or I'm talking to CJ Box, or Terrence McCauley, or Matt Betley, or somebody that's written a book, etc. And if I want to play an audio clip like I like to play, I like to refer to audio clips as frequently as I can, then the people that are calling in can hear that over their phone as well. And that's incredibly important when I'm talking to somebody back and forth. And I want to make reference to a particular point, and then after having played that audio clip, they can weigh in and say, okay, I see what you're saying, and let's move on from there. So finally, I can't tell you how much I'm pleased and happy that the audio at SHR has gotten what I consider to be a hell of a lot better. We got this nice laptop. We got this nice Arrakis ArcTalk Blue board over here. I've got my own little personal laptop over here, which runs off of a flash drive, which is infinitely faster than the old drive that it used to have. And I haven't even logged into chat yet. So let's see if there's anything over in chat. And I'm completely alone. Okay, give it time. Hey, it's Thursday. Who knows what could be happening on a Thursday? So the phone system is in the process of being upgraded. Tonight, there's a ton of stuff to talk about. And I wanted to start out, however, with either an apology or an explanation. I've noticed that I've been taken to task a couple of times now in my email for saying poo-poo nasties on the air. And I have to back up by saying, yes, guilty. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon your view on the matter, bad words come out of my mouth now and then, in two occasions, when I'm particularly worked up or kind of emotional or I want to make a point. And some of the people, I've given folks my email address, and it goes directly to me because I am my own producer, I'm my own email reader, etc. But people do send me things, and here's my email in case you're interested and want to send, lots of emails with F and S words, like some of the leftists do. And I have not shut down my email account because some of the stuff is interesting to read. Mostly, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to give them the time that they're trying to get. But some of the other people who have weighed in, bz@shrmedia.com, in case you were interested, have said, I really like your content. I like your show. I like the sound. They don't make any reference to whether they like my voice or not. Something's going on with this board. I am really having to crank up the sound on this. I wonder if there's a master control that I can set. Well, again, that's technology, so I'm going to have to check with Sackhead Sean. But they've said, we like a lot of your show, and I've gotten more than 3 or 4 emails on this. But I don't really care for what they considered, some considered to be the flagrant use of my F and S words. And as I said, I am guilty. I really had to watch this in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for 41 years. And in the 70s, when I grew up, I was a little baby cop in the 70s. This was pretty common. There was a lot of stuff that was common. And so since then, I've had to really attempt to tamp all that stuff down, particularly when I was instructing. And I would instruct in 2 major venues. I would instruct as an EVOC instructor, and I've been doing that. I did that for the feds. I did that for the county that I worked for. So I've been an EVOC instructor for a real long time. And, of course, I tested psychomotor skills, so I did the stuff out in the field, and I also did the classroom presentations. While doing the classroom presentations, you could kind of sort of get away with that stuff when you had an adult class or in-service class. But for the recruits, you had to be, especially these newer days, you had to be very aware of the sensitivity of the new recruits, the style of recruit that we're getting in. And so I really had to watch my words. Now, I recognize that this is, on the East Coast, it starts at 11 o'clock. On the West Coast, it starts at 8 p.m., and it starts at 1927 and 728.725 split times 3 time in Bolivia. That having been said, on most of my posts in social media, I say something like caution explicit because it's a late-night show. It's not a show during the day, and it's certainly not a show for kids, even if I was as clean as the driven snow. So, having been taken to task for that by some people who I don't know if I can quantify them particularly as offended, per se, and I'm not going to give their names. Maybe I'm going to have to rethink when I let loose. I've noticed that I do it a lot more than Sackhead Sean did, and I do it a lot more than Sackhead's Clint does still. So, okay, I'm guilty. I'm going to have to try to watch my P's and Q's and limit the F and S words that I say. Even though it is a late-night talk show, people can still listen to the podcast during the day, and this show is definitely NSFW, particularly if you're playing this thing over a speaker. NSFW, not suitable for work because of what I say, and also because of the political content. There are a lot of people that are in jobs who cannot let it be known that they're listening to somebody who happens to be conservative. That's a sad aspect of our society today, but it's very true, and I recognize that limitation. So, I'm going to try to do by the way, hello to Mary Brockman. Welcome. So I'm going to try to do my level best to curtail, not completely curtail, but at least tamp down a bit some of the expletives that heretofore I've thrown in rather liberally into my speech.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
That having been said, in tonight's show, boy, is there a lot of good stuff. And if I had a producer, which I don't because I'm it, I would be going over and because I usually like to start out with this, but man, it is a wealth of riches tonight for.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Happy stories and good times. Boy, do we ever have some happy stories and good times. One of the best that I found out today, and I located it just before I got on the air. It's this. Michigan restaurant owner refuses a city demand to remove fallen officers' flags. And so, number one, my first thought is we've sunk so low in our culture that a city, any city anywhere in the United States, wants a restaurant owner to remove the flags of officers who have been killed in the line of duty. My first thought right now is to throw out an F word, and I'm not going to do that. until I forget about things. A restaurant owner in Michigan says he will refuse demands by city officials to remove flags hanging outside his establishment honoring police and soldiers, police and soldiers, who have fallen in the line of duty. Brand's Steakhouse owner Johnny Brand said the city of Grand Rapids sent him a letter demanding the removal of the flags for supposedly violating zoning ordinances. I think I exceed the allotted amount for signage, Brand told ABC Channel 13. Okay, folks, if you happen to be in Michigan, specifically if you happen to be in Grand Rapids, go to this restaurant and buy a steak, have a meal, and tell the owner, Johnny Brand, that you believe completely in what it is that he's doing and standing against the city of Grand Rapids, because he's flying the flags of fallen police officers and fallen military members in front of his restaurant. How heinous and how terrible is that? And I want to tell you, it's called Brand's, Branns, Brand's Steakhouse. If you're anywhere near there, if I were, I'd go there and have as many steaks and dinners and lunches as I could possibly find. The business owner said he had filed a request for the variance on a zoning rule with the City of Grand Rapids Zoning Appeals Board, but he went on to insist he was keeping the flags no matter what the city decides. Finally, somebody with some spine. So, Johnny Brand, kudos to you. Brand created a GoFundMe page to help him raise the $1,349 cost of the variance filing. So, again, I'm sorry. These are small-minded people in medium to large cities, or even in small towns. Small-town politics are every bit as bad as big city politics, and sometimes worse, who think that business owners are nothing but a deep pocket, that they exist solely to be squeezed. So you had to, in Grand Rapids, which isn't that big a town anyway, this guy has to write a check to the city of Grand Rapids for $1,300 for a variance on a zoning rule so that he can fly the flag of fallen officers and military people who served for the United States. How sad is that? Anyway, he set up a GoFundMe page. Mr. Brand is standing up for the beliefs and is showing unbelievable respect for police officers and fallen heroes. The GoFundMe page reads, I don't know how GoFundMe works, but if you have any cash, and I guess they would accept PayPal, if you want to send these guys $5, again, $1, $5 to GoFundMe, I'm not exactly sure how you do it. It's probably GoFundMe.com. Duh. I've never been to that site. But look for Brand's Steakhouse. And if you have $1 or $2 rattling around via PayPal or whatever pay method they happen to take, send him $1 or $2, would you? Because at the conclusion of the show, I'm going to send this guy a couple of dollars myself. Appearing on a recent Fox and Friends, Brand noted that 22 police officers have been killed in the line of duty this year, adding that he thinks it's important to recognize their sacrifice. The people of the United States got to understand the importance of law enforcement, the business owner said. They protect us, they protect and serve. If you call them, it doesn't matter who you are, what time it is, if your life's threatened, they come helping. And they risk their lives every day to walk out to do their jobs. Law enforcement and our military are vital, so it's not even complicated to me, and the banners and the signs are staying up. And to you, I say, God bless you, sir. As far as I'm concerned, that is definitely a happy story. GoFundMe, Brand's Steakhouse in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Here's another happy story. I'm going to be full of them, at least for the first half hour of this show. And then, oh my God, is there a ton of regular news. And I'm also going to be talking about the recent East Area rapist arrest yesterday, because I have more information about that. And I also have some information from a website that indicates the terror and the trauma that mostly the women and some men suffered under this bastard who just got arrested yesterday. I'll get to that stuff. And the reason it affects me is because this guy started in the county of Sacramento, and that's where I retired, the County of Sacramento Sheriff's Department, where I worked 35 years, and then a bunch of other years at other places as well. I worked the East Area Rapist Detail in 1976, and I think I told folks about that on Wednesday night, last night, I should say, on Sackheads Against Tyranny. Another great article. This is from all places. This is from NPR. In intense arguments, Supreme Court appears to be ready to side with Trump on the travel ban. Great news as far as I'm concerned. During intense arguments at the Supreme Court on Wednesday, yesterday, the justices by a narrow margin seemed to be leaning towards upholding the third and current version of the Trump travel ban. Justice Anthony Kennedy, who is often the deciding vote in closely contested cases, for example, made repeated comments suggesting that the court does not usually second-guess a president's national security decisions, even in the context of an immigration law that bans discrimination based on nationality. If the court does rule in favor of the government, a decision is expected in June. It would be a big win for one of the pillars of President Trump's politics. It's an issue that animates the bases of both parties, appealing to the grievance politics of Trump supporters. Now, that's NPR for you, the grievance politics of Trump supporters. Right, just like there aren't grievance politics by leftists and the Democrats in the American media maggots. Okay, that was a visual. I didn't say anything, so I shouldn't have offended anyone. In court Wednesday, faced with the challenger's assertion that the travel ban is indefinite and perpetual, Kennedy replied caustically. So you want the president to say he is convinced that in 6 months we're going to have a safe world? You know what? I think that's called a clue as to what's occurring. And while we're on the topic of courts, this is another a story that I dredged up that you have not heard yet, I'll wager. And let's see if we can get somebody to talk about this.
The Ninth Circuit is the nation's largest court of appeals, covering 9 western states, and in recent years, the court has handled some of the nation's...
Okay, let me stop. I cut that off a little bit. They're talking about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals here.
Most pivotal issues like immigration, same-sex marriage, and landmark environmental cases. The court, as you noted, has also gained a reputation as being among the nation's most liberal, and advocates have fought to keep it that way. In fact, 4 years ago, when Circuit Judge Stephen Reinhart, a liberal stalwart, was 83, his longtime friend and dean of UC Berkeley School of Law, Erwin Chemerinsky, suggested that Judge Reinhart step down, while Democrats still had the power to replace him with a like-minded liberal. Reinhart refused, and now his death allows President Trump to name his replacement.
Uh-oh. You mean to say, BZ, that in the possible future of the Ninth Circuit, the most overturned DCA, District Court of Appeal, in the entire planet, that they may be going just a bit conservative? Didn't I tell you this was going to be good news?
And it goes even deeper. Of the 29 judges who make up the Ninth Circuit, there are now 8 vacancies. And with Republicans controlling the Senate, Mr.
8 vacancies.
Mr. Trump likely has the power to dramatically change the Ninth Circuit, which has been a thorn in his side. Remember, the Ninth Circuit ruled against Trump's...
The Ninth Circuit isn't just a thorn in Trump's side. The Ninth Circuit is a thorn in the side of logic, common sense, rationality, proportion, and actual justice.
Travel ban and his plan to withhold federal funding from sanctuary cities. Trump's nomination still wouldn't turn the court conservative, but it would certainly tilt it that way. Though we should note...
And boy, would I tell you, if he gets to install a lot of people, can you imagine the arguments, the physical arguments? There might be fisticuffs. Boy, would I like to see that. The actual arguments, real, honest to God arguments that may occur in the chambers of the Ninth Circuit. Boy, would I like to be a visual fly on the wall for that.
California Senator Dianne Feinstein, the senior Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, has vowed to fight Trump's nominees.
Of course, and that worked so well for someone that I'm going to be mentioning in just a bit. That's more good news.
On the flip side, Republican members of the Senate Judiciary are already annoyed with Democrats for slow-walking judicial nominees, and now they are vowing to change the rules to speed up the process.
All right, Trace Gallagher, thank you.
Okay, imagine that. Wouldn't that be a shock? Because, you know, the Democrats wanted to eliminate the filibuster, and they were the ones that pushed that, so it shouldn't have shocked them that, in fact, the filibuster was kicked to the curb. Here's another story that had it been President Hillary Clinton, this story right now would not be occurring, guaranteed. And this was ripped from today's screaming headlines about 3 hours ago. This happens to be from thedailymail.com. For 53 years, this has not occurred. Today, it occurred. Kim Jong-un's historic walk south. North Korean dictator becomes the first to cross into the South for 65 years and warmly shakes hands with his sworn enemy, President Moon Jae-in, at unprecedented peace summit. North Korean dictator greeted by President Moon after crossing military demarcation line on the 38th parallel. The leaders are meeting at Panmunjom, the truce village where the Korean War armistice was signed in 1953, hence my reference to 1953. He entered at 9:30 a.m. local time, and after talks, Kim and Moon are going to have lunch separately before they decide that they're going to be holding a tree planting ceremony in the afternoon. And then further talks are going to finish and wrap up at dinner, with dishes painstakingly selected to emphasize unity from two Koreas. And I repeat, under President Hillary Clinton, do you think any of this would be occurring? I do. This is absolutely phenomenal. And people were saying that Donald Trump, he's pushing. He calls him Little Kim. It's going to be a nuclear conflagration. And then all of a sudden, Kim Jong-un takes a little green armored train over to China, where he talks to China's President Xi Jinping, who probably, in a private moment of sullenness, slaps real Kim around a little bit. And after that meeting, isn't it odd? So much seemed to change. Kim is becoming a bit more conciliatory. We haven't had one nuclear test since. We have not had one missile or rocket firing since on behalf of North Korea. Kim Jong-un has lobbed not one rocket anywhere since that meeting. He's agreed to talk to President Trump next month and has agreed to put his nuclear program on hold. President Trump has also likewise told Kim that if he doesn't think the meetings are going anywhere, or if the United States isn't apparently going to get anything out of them, he's going to get up and he's going to walk out. I repeat, I do not believe that this would have happened under Hillary Clinton or any other leftist. This is history making. It is absolutely and clearly, after this story today, it's history making and unprecedented for almost a century. Whiskey Dale, good to see you in chat as well. Always happy to do that. Folks, we are going to take a little bit of a break, and we're going to come right back. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin. That's me. Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know, I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
You are listening to the the SHR Media Network. You're not listening to the, well, yeah, in a way you are listening to the Sackheads Radio. That's what SHR is. Sackheads Radio Network. And you're listening to me, the bloviating Zeppelin, in the SHR Media Network studios, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the Bill Mill, the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill itself, the capital of the state of California, there in Sacramento, where the smell and stench of sulfur and brimstone can be found if you get too damn close to it. Never get too close to that. Have I got an article that I'm coming, oh my God, the stuff that I'm writing and the stuff that I'm finding out about the state of California and how remarkably screwed up it is. There are some interesting people that are going to be running in November for lieutenant governor and for governor. And I'm starting to think that perhaps Jerry Brown is our current governor in California. He's way left. It's the second time for him being governor. The first time was in the 70s when he and Linda Ronstadt were a thing. And now he's lost all his hair and he's bald, and he's kind of lost his marbles as well. But if you think that Jerry Brown was left, you ain't seen left yet, because when Gavin Newsom, the son of a district court judge, his dad used to live up near me, up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. He moved a little bit about a year ago or so. Wow. Gavin Newsom? See, Jerry Brown now is to the point where he is insufficiently left for the left. And you can see the Democrats are moving hard apart. So if California decides to install Gavin Newsom as governor, if you thought this state was well and truly fucked, oh, it will be reamed with a white-hot piece of rebar up the taxpayer's ass when Gavin Newsom, if he gets installed as governor in November. Holy moly. But I told you that I had happy stories, and I told you that there were good times coming. Today, Bill Cosby was found guilty. Guilty. 3 counts. And during the last portion of the trial, when they were discussing bail, the prosecutor said, I'm requesting no bail in the interim because I'm thinking that he might be a flight risk. And by the way, he has his own airplane. And Bill Cosby thought that it would be a great idea to stand up in open court and call that guy an asshole, because that'll work so well for Bill Cosby. After the guilty verdict was read, defense attorney Tom Mesereau said the fight is not over, and he urged that there will be an appeal. It's very interesting. Bill Cosby is allegedly legally blind and is on the arm of his attorney wherever he goes, and apparently that didn't play out very well for him. Bill Cosby is 80 years old, so if he gets almost any sentence out of this, he was found guilty, but he still has to go back for sentencing, of course. Whatever sentence that he gets for essentially drugging and raping women, this could literally be a death sentence for him, meaning that he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars. The Judge Stephen T. Here's the part. Judge Stephen T. O'Neill repeatedly called for order as the court erupted as the jury delivered its shock verdict, unanimously finding Cosby guilty on all 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault, administering an intoxicant, rendering his victim unconscious, and penetrating her without consent. The 80-year-old actor is now facing essentially life in prison, as each count carries a sentence of up to 10 years imprisonment. I used to like Bill Cosby. I used to laugh at him. But if the power, whatever power he has, went to his head in this fashion and he did these things and the jury said he did, then he needs to spend the rest of his life behind bars, period. End of statement. I find that was a happy story. Here's another one that I'm finding I am conflicted. I am remarkably conflicted by Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions will say one thing one day, and he'll say another thing another day that makes me think that probably one of the worst appointments Donald Trump ever made was Jeff Sessions as AG. Maybe he made a great senator, not saying he wasn't, but as an AG, he is less than impressive. Then he comes out yesterday with this. Robert Mueller's investigation of Trump needs to conclude, Jeff Sessions says. I was shocked to hear that. But there's another story in concert with this that I'll be getting to. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said Thursday that an ongoing probe into President Trump needs to conclude in order to let him focus on North Korea, the U.S.-Mexico border, and other world negotiations. Mr. Sessions also says he expects the Justice Department Inspector General to finish his investigation into the department's and the FBI's handling of investigations into Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election in a few weeks, saying that will provide more information for decisions on whether there was wrongdoing. So he testified in the House on Thursday, actually it was today, and was pressed by a lawmaker who said he saw a double standard in comparing the ongoing special counsel probe into Mr. Trump, while Mr. Sessions has declined to name a second special counsel to review the way the Department and the FBI handled, in my opinion, in extremely biased fashion and an unlawful fashion, good old Hillary Rodham Clinton. Then there was this. I'm full of good news tonight, finally, as I should be. Mike Pompeo was confirmed as Secretary of State, and another guy named Grenell was okayed as the German ambassador. Pompeo's confirmation came around, I think, because Rand Paul was adamantly against him. And I occasionally side with Rand Paul. He is a fairly large a fairly large libertarian, not unlike his father. And when it comes to fiscal issues, etc., auditing the Fed, et al., I'm pretty much on Rand Paul's playing sheet. This time, though, I was not with him. But what I think occurred is that his constituents in Kentucky, I betcha they got to him and said something similar to, you better come around, bucko, if you want to be our representative again.
Fox News alert, the Senate confirming Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State by a vote of 57-42. 7 lawmakers,
fairly narrow,
who caucus with the Democrats voted yes after Pompeo took a secret trip to North Korea over Easter weekend to lay the groundwork for President Trump's upcoming meeting with Kim Jong-un. The president spoke more about the
So essentially, Mike Pompeo was acting on behalf of the United States already as a pseudo-Secretary of State, meaning even before he was confirmed, he's doing the damn job. And a fine job it is.
Earlier on Fox and Friends.
This is a much more dangerous ballgame now, but I will tell you it's going very well. Mike Pompeo did go there. He wasn't supposed to meet with Kim Jong-un, but he did. They arranged actually while he was there to say hello. We have.
On the other hand, nothing succeeds like success.
Incredible pictures of the two talking and meeting, which I'd love to release if we can. I'll do that. Actually, it's not a bad idea.
So it was just a hello, Mr. President?
But no, it was more than a hello. They got along. They were with each other for, more than an hour.
Let's bring in Republican Senator from Wyoming, John Barrasso. He is a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Melissa.
So what do you think this means for President Trump's foreign policy?
Okay, let me stop there just for a second. I don't know if they're going to get into this, into the audio cut. But the other thing you need to know is that the confirmation was made for a guy named Richard Grenell, Trump's choice for ambassador to Germany, whose nomination had been held up by Democrats. By the way, Grenell was a former spokesman for the United Nations, and he was confirmed kind of by a narrow margin as well, 56-42.
Well, I think it's good that we now have a Secretary of State on the job. Mike Pompeo is the right person to do it. He has the intelligence and the integrity, the experience to do it. I'm glad to see him confirmed 57-42. And in terms of the foreign policy, the world remains a very dangerous place, Melissa, and you see it in Iran, you see it in North Korea, you see it with Russia, other hotspots around the world, what we're seeing in Syria. It's good to have Mike Pompeo there and now on the job.
One of the things at the top of his list has to do with the Iran nuclear deal. Do you think that Secretary Pompeo will encourage the president to pull out of that deal?
Or make it stronger? Look, what we have, Iran with a nuclear weapon, is going to make the world less safe, less secure, less stable. We cannot allow that to happen, but the current Iran deal allows Iran to have a path to a weapon. We know there have already been bad actors. They're developing ballistic.
I believe Iran already has a nuclear weapon. I believe that that's very secret. And I also believe that our elements, our intelligence elements, are already aware of that. And certainly in the Obama administration, they were completely clueless and or intimidated, but certainly completely clueless as to what to do about that particular situation. Oh, let me stop here just for a second. Here's something that you need to know, because the Democrats if you were wondering, hey, an ambassador to Germany, what is the deal with holding up a guy named Richard Grenell as ambassador to Germany? Is this an astounding post? Why this guy? He's about as innocuous as milk. Do you want to know why? It's very simple. Richard Grenell is gay. And Richard Grenell leans conservative. So when the Democrats, leftists, or the American media maggots want to assure you, definitely they want to assure you that they're pro-gay. No, they're not. This was the first major gay appointment, not like it really means a fuck of a thing. Oh, I'm sorry, there I go again. 25 cents in the hat for me. But not that it means a hell of a lot. But he's gay, so who cares? If he's a good guy, make the appointment. But you and I both know that Democrats held him up because he was a gay guy who dared to lean conservative. Fact.
Missiles, they're using money that the Obama administration gave them as part of the Iran deal. They're using that money for terrorism. They're providing weapons in Syria. I think Iran cannot be trusted under any circumstances, and to have Mike Pompeo on the job is important to work along with President Trump to make sure that we make sure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
The world is a dangerous place. Bingo. So Pompeo and Grenell confirmed. Those are more good stories. You want another good story? Here's one. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, visited the White House, and they had a wonderful dinner. By the way, I should tell you that the gold silverware that they had for that big dinner, that was, oddly enough, the same silverware that the Clintons liberated from the White House, but they very quietly returned back to the White House. We don't know how it got into our moving van. We have no idea about that. But in a fit of pique, President Donald Trump thought that it would be somehow perfect if he were to honor the Macrons, the president of France and his wife, with a dinner, having that silverware served for everyone there. 150 people. I think that's absolutely wonderful. But here's a story about Macron blinks on the Iranian nuclear pact, wants to work with Trump on a new deal. Now, it's no surprise that when Obama made this deal, France and Germany were in on the deal as well. They thought it was a good thing to do, to be submissive to Iran, because it's worked so well in the past when you're conciliatory to dictators, as everyone full fucking well... Okay, that's number 3, 25 cents in the hat. Full well knows President Trump's close friendship with French President Emmanuel that guy appeared to produce a diplomatic breakthrough Tuesday for the Iran nuclear deal, with the two men agreeing to work together to impose more restrictions on the Islamic regime outside for the 2015 agreement's framework. Mr. Macron is the leading lobbyist for an effort by European powers to keep Mr. Trump from renouncing the deal, which imposed restrictions on Iran's nuclear programs in exchange for lifting international economic sanctions. And if you also remember, it was Obama who shipped $1.8 billion in cash in U.S. and other Euro currency in the back of a C-17 in the dead of night, like a great Robert Ludlum novel, to pay off Iran. That was a great decision. And then negotiate, that's an air quote if you're watching the visual, negotiate a deal with Iran where they get everything and we get nothing. Because that's how it works. That's Obama's strategic patience and leading from behind. Then we get to this particular story, and we've had it pretty much for happy stories. But I think those were a bunch of good things that were going on. Yesterday, a 72-year-old man was arrested in Sacramento. It turned out that he was the East Area rapist. At minimum, he's going to be charged with 12 murders. My guess is there are perhaps dozens more, and 45 to 50 plus rapes since 1976 up to about 1986. An article came out today from the Sacramento Bee, which indicated that the suspect, Joseph James DeAngelo, who was 72, and he was known to his neighbors as Joe, was quirky and complex, and they never thought the former cop next door could be notorious. They thought that he was an odd man with a loud voice, a penchant for puttering in his front yard, and a reputation for a bad temper. One neighbor said DeAngelo threatened to deliver a load of death because he was enraged by a barking dog. Others said the portly 72-year-old would shout obscenities in his front yard when some chore went awry. That is to say, he was doing the chore, he didn't do it to his own satisfaction, and he was essentially cursing at himself. It gave some neighbors a sense that the guy in the trim ranch-style house with the immaculate front lawn was quirky, complex, and troubled. Now, law enforcement officials say that he was a lot more, a much darker individual. He's suspected of being one of the most notorious, violent, and feared criminals in modern California history. And then adding to the bizarre circumstances, he has a criminal justice degree from Sac State, my alma mater, and he was a police officer who may have committed burglaries, rapes, and murders during the years that he wore a badge. Based on DNA evidence, law enforcement officials said Wednesday, stop, DNA evidence. Wait until I tell you the next story about the DNA evidence, how it was acquired, and where it came from. We'll get to that. They believe DeAngelo is the notorious East Area Rapist in Sacramento County. That's what I worked on, the East Area Rapist, the EAR detail in 1976, when I was given an unmarked AMC Matador, and myself and a partner in an unmarked car wearing a uniform cruised around from place to place. We would sit. We were given the earliest models of NVGs, and we didn't respond to prowler calls because you can, I'm sure, imagine that the prowler calls skyrocketed during the time. And he was the Golden State Killer in Southern California. He was mysterious, deft, and unusually cruel serial assailant who allegedly raped as many as 4 dozen women and murdered a dozen people. I think there's so many more that are under or unreported. And I think that during his times of quiet, he went someplace else, perhaps to another state, Nevada, etc. So much more to talk about of this story. At a noon press conference yesterday, Sacramento County Sheriff Scott Jones said DeAngelo worked for the Auburn Police Department from 1976 to 1979. That's when the East Area Rapist first was hitting in 1976, hence myself and my partner and other people all around the county were working the unit. He was let go after he was stealing a hammer, or he was charged with stealing a hammer and dog repellent from a Citrus Heights drugstore. Jones said the investigation, Sheriff Jones, said the investigation will include looking at whether the hammer and dog repellent were related to any of the crimes the East Area Rapist was committing around that time. And DeAngelo had previously worked as a police officer in a little teeny town called Exeter, near Visalia, which is further south from Sacramento, earlier than Auburn. That was from 1973 to 1976. And during that time in Visalia, there was a crime spree going on by an individual called the Visalia Ransacker, who was burglarizing homes. Gee, I can't imagine any linkage with that. He was originally charged, he's been initially charged with a 1978 double homicide in Rancho Cordova, officials said, where he chased and shot a young couple on the street, and the investigation is ongoing. He was arrested by SWAT officers and federal and local officers at his home, just a few miles from brutal 1970s rape sites in eastern Sacramento County, hence his being called the East Area Rapist. Neighbors gathered to watch outside as the arrest occurred. There were about 30 officials combing through everything. One of the neighbors in the neighborhood said, "It's terrifying to think this guy could have hopped the fence and come into my backyard. I have children." Well, at 72, that guy's not going to be doing too much hopping. D'Angelo spent most of his life in suburban Sacramento and the Foothills Records show. He was married in fall of 1973. How'd you like to be the chick that married this guy? She got divorced. They got divorced. But in reflection, that she married this guy and was sleeping with, a serial killer and a serial rapist. I don't think that's probably working too well. He got married in fall of 1973 to the former Sharon Marie Huddle of Citrus Heights, according to a wedding announcement. And it indicated D'Angelo, the suspect, was a graduate of Folsom High School and Sacramento State. He attended Sierra College from 1968 to 1970. In his late teens, he moved to rural Auburn with his mother and stepfather. And D'Angelo's stepfather worked for Bergerell's father. This father was named Bergerell, worked for his father at Sierra Crane and Hoist as a welder making indoor overhead cranes. The stepfather bought a 5-acre piece of land from the Bergerells and built a home. Bergerell said he remembered D'Angelo as clean-cut and pleasant. He said D'Angelo was injured while serving in the military and lost a finger. He had one younger brother. His mother worked as a waitress at a Denny's in Auburn. Sac State officials said he graduated from Sac State in 1972 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I think you see that this is going somewhere. In 1973, an article in the Exeter Sun newspaper profiled D'Angelo as a new police hire and said that he served in Vietnam in the Navy for 22 months and did, in fact, go to Vietnam. So here we have an individual who is militarily trained and who also served in the police department and clearly went to an academy for doing that. He also had an internship in the Roseville Police Department working in the ID, Identification and Investigations Division. Roseville Police spokesman said that they checked their microfiche index of temporary employees from long ago. They didn't find any records of him. And they said that the Exeter Sun article said that they believe that without law and order, there can be no government, and without a democratic government, there can be no freedom. Law enforcement is his career, he says, and his job. A serial rapist and serial murderer, his job is serving the community. To him, on a plate, and all of his victims, whenever he wishes. So whatever happened between D'Angelo's time as an Auburn PD officer and now, from his firing in 1979, is largely unknown. This is also creepy. He has adult children, according to Sheriff Jones. This is equally creepy. There is a Save Mart. Save Mart is a grocery chain. There is a Save Mart distribution center that was created at 1989, I believe. And it was a big distribution center in Roseville. And that's where D'Angelo worked as a truck mechanic. Since that time, he worked for at that distribution center for 27 years. And all during that time, his co-workers were working right next door and right with a serial killer and a serial rapist. And as I indicated, they're going to find many, many, many more, I believe, victims in this case, both murderers and rapists. I don't think they've even... This is the tip of the proverbial iceberg. I've got another article coming up that you need to hear about the DNA and how it was that he was captured. And then I've got another article coming up which will show you and clearly illustrate to you how evil that particular person was with his victims. Folks, don't go away. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of...
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I have to say, this song makes me happy. I think this is an upbeat little number, and I happen to like it a lot. We're talking about the East Area rapist, the guy that was arrested yesterday, a guy named Joe D'Angelo. And they found out that he worked for a bunch of years, 27 years as a truck mechanic. And as I was saying, hey, can you imagine having a locker next to that guy maybe for 10 years or 27 years or something like that? And when he retired, like a year or two ago, whenever that was, you find out that, yeah, hey, that guy was the nicest serial killer and rapist I've ever come across. Records also show that D'Angelo lived at the Citrus Heights house right there as far back as 1983, meaning that he was still active then. There's a neighbor that said that he was divorced, had recently been living with a daughter and a granddaughter at the house. How creepy would that be, particularly in light of the article that I'm going to read you to show you the depravity of this guy? There's a bunch of other stuff. They said that he was about 5'10", gray hair, blue eyes, and a round face. He was a regular guy, except for that quirkiness thing of getting mad. From what I can remember, one of the neighbors said he was just a normal grandpa. Okay, a normal grandpa. But Sackhead's Clint and I were pondering yesterday. Okay, DNA, I get it. I understand how you could have collected DNA from a bunch of crimes up here in Northern California and then had DNA from some of the crimes that were down in Southern California and connected the two when you ran them and said, look, the DNA matches. But where was the matching? What was the nexus between the DNA of the suspect, D'Angelo, and the DNA that was found on the various crime scenes? There's an article that came out today in the Sacramento Bee which explains a whole bunch of it. And also is a cautionary tale. Let this be a cautionary tale to anybody that thinks it's a great idea to get on Ancestry.com, because I'm going to have a comment about that after I read this article. The headline is this: Relatives' DNA from genealogy websites cracked the East Area rapist case, DA's office says. Sacramento investigators tracked down the East Area rapist suspect, Joseph James D'Angelo, using genealogical websites that contained genetic information from a relative, the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office confirmed today. The effort was part of a painstaking process that began by using DNA from one of the crime scenes from years ago and comparing it to genetic profiles available online through various websites that cater to individuals wanting to know more about their family backgrounds by accepting DNA samples. The investigation was conducted over a long period of time as officials in Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert's office and crime lab explored online family trees that appeared to match DNA samples from the East Area rapist's crimes. I hope you're getting what they're saying here. They then followed clues to individuals in the family tree to determine whether or not they were potential suspects. The process finally came to fruition last Thursday when the investigation focused on the possibility that D'Angelo might be a suspect, a suspicion bolstered by the fact that he had lived in the area where the attacks occurred and was in the right age range. And so the DA said in an interview at her office that the April 19th determination that D'Angelo might be a suspect set the investigation into high gear. Sacramento County Sheriff Scott Jones, investigators, set up surveillance on D'Angelo in his quiet Citrus Heights neighborhood and obtained his DNA from something he discarded. The crime lab, and boy, is that going to be I can tell you right now, that is going to be the bone of contention in his trial. Guaranteed, because also collection of evidence from garbage has been ruled in some cases that people have an expectation of privacy with regard to their refuse and the reason that they throw it out, and they expect it to be untouched from points A, from the trash can, to the point that it's picked up by a truck or some other vehicle or entity. Guaranteed. Oh, I can hear the cases and the rebuttals. I can hear them being written from here. That's going to be a massive bone of contention in this particular case. The crime lab began testing the material, and Schubert said she got a call last Friday night while she was at a high school fundraiser telling her that the D'Angelo DNA matched that found at decades-old murder scenes in Ventura and Orange counties. The sample provided overwhelming evidence that it was him, and they wanted a second sample, which sheriff's officials recovered. They're being very cagey about that. As I say, that's going to be a bone of contention, if not the bone of contention in this entire case. I can see it from here. The results from testing, that second sample came in while Schubert was in her office Monday night, this past Monday night. The second sample was astronomical evidence that it was him, she said, adding, there were a lot of holy shit moments during that. We wanted to be able to move quickly because it wasn't like he was in custody somewhere, and adding that she didn't tell all prosecutors with all unsolved crimes around the state in an effort to keep the discovery secret. Not all the DAs knew at the time that the arrest was made. I think it's a fair statement that it was closely held. So he was arrested outside his house Tuesday afternoon, and he was booked into the county jail on two initial charges of murder, just to keep him there, because in a murder case, there is no bail on a fresh arrest. I just happen to know that. 2 charges of murder in the February 1978 slayings of Katie and Brian Maggiore in Rancho Cordova. So far, they think he's going to face charges in 12 homicide cases in Sacramento, Orange, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties, stemming from a rape and slaying spree that authorities say stretched from 1974 down there through May 1986. So, with that having been said, I have to ask you, and you should be asking yourself as well, even though these are the circumstances of D'Angelo, how private, is your DNA on Ancestry websites? And I have to say that case, it's bringing up issues, privacy issues. Think of it this way, millions, literally millions of Americans are packing up the samples of their saliva, which is generally a swab in your mouth. You pack it, you send it to the particular business, Ancestry, and there's a whole bunch of others that do that. You mail them off to an online genealogical company to analyze the DNA, and it's supposed to help you trace and track your family tree. So what you may be doing is letting law enforcement into your DNA. Which, of course, upon first rejoinder is, well, I'm not doing anything, so why is that an issue? Here's why it may be an issue. Some of the things we already know about genealogical companies like this is they don't exist forever. However, that material that exists, because it's already occurred, I should tell you, when I did my checking on the internet for this particular story, today, when I read the Sacramento Bee story, already some of the businesses that deal with this, the labs, etc., have gone under. And prior to going under, what some companies have done is, drum roll, sold your DNA to other companies who have the ability to store it, because, of course, as you full well know, it's all digitized. Once it's digitized, it can be sent with alacrity anywhere over a common internet connection. So if you think you're safe, that companies won't go out of business, that when you sign whatever form that you're going to be signing, if you think that your DNA is safe and it won't be sold, you'd be deceiving yourself, because it's already occurred. And then once, say, for example, because I do what BZ calls the logical exception, the logical extension, I should say. When there becomes a vast warehouse of DNA, and especially this is of great consideration for your kids, your grandkids, sooner or later, we're going to break the human genome. And when we do, we're going to discover early on in a child's life and a younger person's life that these individuals already have proclivities towards certain diseases that life insurance companies and other insurance companies aren't going to want to touch. And that DNA already exists in a digital format. And that opens up a massive Pandora's box that you can be guaranteed it will be shared. If it's digital, it can be hacked, it can be sold, it can be moved on. If you think you're doing yourself any favor whatsoever, think ahead. before you send your DNA in. Okay, if you're in your 60s or your 70s or your 80s, you can take a big cup of I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry, that's number 4, 25 cents in the hat. But for your kids who may not want to have their DNA splayed all over creation and to have either private businesses or the government hold in a repository somewhere their DNA, now that's already being done for criminals who are being booked on felonies, at least in the state of California, their DNA is collected under certain felony statutes, and in other states. Think before you act, folks. Think before you act. It's all digitized. And now you know the secret, if you will, of how it is that the DNA occurred here. So, Sacramento County District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert declined to detail how her office obtained the relative's DNA profile or accessed a genealogical database, raising questions about the privacy of personal genetic information on websites. Hello. Let this be a lesson to you. I was in law enforcement for 41 years. I'm also a libertarian, little L. Like this, maybe. I believe in privacy. I'm the last of my kind that believes in privacy. And we're close to the point where there will be absolutely no privacy whatsoever, because once someone has your DNA, they've got you. Now and into perpetuity. And don't you think that someone or a series of someones somewhere are salivating and waiting to make their own legal or illegal repository of all the DNA data that they can possibly hoover up in the internet? And the answer would be yes. That's exactly what's going on. Colleen Fitzpatrick and Margaret Press, who run a nonprofit organization called the DNA Doe Project, said one of D'Angelo's relatives may have shared DNA results with one of several public DNA matching websites where people upload genetic data in search of biological parents or other long-lost relatives after obtaining results from a commercial site. The sheriff's department could then have gone to one of those sites, loaded DNA information from the East Area Rapist crime scenes, and found partial matches. It's like working a puzzle, they said. It's painstaking. So now you have a better idea of how this was managed and how it occurred. We're going to shift gears for a second, because I'm sure you've already heard that we have a little bit of something occurring on our southern border, and that's the caravan of 400-plus illegals coming from South America, and they're either going to be there knocking on our door very soon, either today or immediately tomorrow. And perhaps at first blush you might be thinking to yourself, this isn't necessarily a terrible thing. Well, do the logical extension, as BZ frequently is wont to do. Here's an article from Reuters. It says, Trump officials warn of arrests as migrant caravan reaches U.S. border. From Tijuana. Hundreds of Central American migrants from a caravan through Mexico reunited in Tijuana on yesterday, and they plan to cross into the United States together this weekend in defiance of threats by President Donald Trump to repel them. The timing of the migrants' arrival could compromise a flurry of talks to renegotiate the North America Free Trade Agreement. By the way, NAFTA, there's an acronym. It's called by various cartels the North American Free Drug Agreement, because the cartels have been shipping drugs under the guise of NAFTA in trucks and trains, boxcars, for literally years. The Mexican drug cartels in both sides of the border, that's 5, quarter in a hat. They fucking love NAFTA. That's 6, quarter in a hat. They love NAFTA because it's so much easier to move their drugs. Another major reason that BZ thinks NAFTA should go straight to hell. Just thought I'd interject that as a little tidbit from me to you. Trump has repeatedly threatened to scrap NAFTA if Mexico does not crack down on the floor of Central Americans through its territory, which they haven't done. U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen said her agency was monitoring the caravan and would prosecute anyone who illegally entered the United States or made a false immigration claim. By the way, were you aware of this? Thought I'd throw this little tidbit into the mix for you. MS-13 members are trying to claim not citizenship, but they're trying to claim that they're underage kids as they're crossing the border to get into the United States from either Canada and or Mexico. And the United States, being the nation of frequent saps that they are letting MS-13 gang members who are youthful looking across the border because they're just kids. Let them in. Migrants began arriving by bus on Tuesday at a shelter that was a 5-minute walk from the border and within sight of a U.S. flag fluttering under an overpass linking the two countries. Minutes after disembarking, some sat outside the shelter with bowls of food, gazing over the road towards the United States. "The wall doesn't look that tall," said Kimberly George, a 15-year-old girl from Honduras, nodding toward the stunted barrier only a few feet away. "I really want to cross it." Doesn't your heart go out to all of these people who took that long trek from Central America? Because all good people would want to take in as many people as we possibly can from Mexico and from South America as well. Oh, hold on that car wash right there, Binky. Here's an article from British media. This is from The Guardian, which generally leans very left. Except when it happens to portray the truth, and that's this. The headline goes, "Breathtaking homicidal violence. Latin America is in the grip of a murder crisis. The region has experienced 2.5 million murders since 2000, and a report paints a bleak picture of extreme violence and deteriorating security." Now, stop. Let's think about this like rational adults, not like leftists, like rational adults just for a moment. We already know that Venezuela has turned to shit under Maduro. That's 25 cents in the head. And that a lot of Venezuelans are trying to go north towards anywhere but Venezuela or south, anywhere where there's food and not rampant violence and murder. That's just one country. Let's add almost all the other nations in South America. Latin America has suffered more than 2.5 million murders since the start of this century and is facing an acute public security crisis that demands urgent and innovative solutions, a new report warns. Now, all the bells and klaxons ought to be going off in your brain right now because you're not a leftist. And what are those bells and klaxons telling you? I know what they're telling me. Let's continue with the article. "The sheer dimensions of homicidal violence are breathtaking," says the report by the Igarapé Institute, a Brazil-based think tank focused on security and development issues. The publication, released on Thursday, paints a bleak portrait of what it calls the world's most homicidal continent. Stop. Oh, that's good to know. The world's most homicidal continent is just to the south of the United States of America. Huzzah, huzzah. Good times for us. Keep doing BZ's logical extension, okay? Latin America suffers 33% of the world's homicides, despite having only 8% of its population. 1/4 of all global homicides are concentrated in 4 countries: Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, and Venezuela, all which are gearing up for presidential elections in which security is a dominant theme. Stop. Mexico, if you're not aware, is about to turn hard left. So wouldn't it be great now if perhaps, a socialist or a Marxist were to get installed as president of Mexico? That would be absolutely so beneficial for the United States sharing a border. Trump build that wall. And I'm sure by now you see where I'm going. Build that wall. And caravan, no one gets in. Because if the people in that caravan, news travels quickly. If the people in that caravan have taken a trek on foot or otherwise from somewhere in South America, and they come up to the United States border, and they're allowed to enter the United States, that then gives carte blanche for every other person in every other nation to decide, properly so, given those circumstances, if they occur, that if they let those people in, they're going to let me and all my friends in because Venezuela is tanking, Brazil is tanking, Colombia is tanking. They're havens of massive violence. And oh yeah, that nice resort in Mexico, Cancun, tourists are being killed, and no one's stopping anymore in Cancun. So, hey, if you were thinking of taking that cute little Holland America cruise to the Mexican Riviera, you got to hold up on that fucking car wash, too. 8. Okay, 25 cents in the hat. The overall trend right now in Latin America is one of increasing homicides and deteriorating security, said Robert Muga. That's like a car horn. I had one that went that thing. It went Muga. One of the report's authors. Latin America is a large area, and there are a lot of variations, but as a region, including Mexico, down to Central America and South America, the rate of homicide is set to, hope you're sitting down for this, bucko, is set to continue increasing up to 2030, the year 2030. Build that wall. The only other places we're seeing similar kinds of increases are in parts of southern and central Africa and some war zones, but that's an entirely separate continent, thank God. Build that wall. The report lays bare how young Latin Americans are disproportionately affected, and we need to let them into the country, don't we? With nearly half of all homicide victims aged 15 to 19. Build that wall. It also denounces the astonishingly large role of guns. Build that wall. Muga said, in addition to having these exceedingly high epidemic levels of homicide, the vast majority of these homicides are committed with firearms. Over 75% of homicides are gun-related. The global average is about 40%. Build that wall. So if you think that building a wall or having a border and a sovereign nation is, it's okay, we can maybe build that wall or maybe not. Because really all we're not talking about terrorists. We're talking about Jose Garcia and a couple of his kids and his wife who want to come up here and they just want to work, okay? And they want to bust your dishes and they want to mow your yard. They're not MS-13 members. And they don't come in bulk, right? Because they're not trying to leave situations where, South America is the most dangerous continent on the planet. And let's see, the highest homicide rate on the planet is in Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, and Mexico. Build that wall. So what a great idea it is to just let the border languish, not do anything about it, because we're on the cusp of having our own Syrian refugee moment in the United States of America. Wow, think of all the voters that the Democrats could get, because that's where all these guys, I'm sure MS-13 votes religiously, and they vote for Republicans, don't they? Sure they do. Build that wall.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. And maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of...
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Wow. It's the last segment of the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Where the hell did an hour and a half go flying by? Just boom, bada bing, bada boom. Just like that. Gone. An hour and a half. I have 2 more articles to read. Both about leftists, both about immigration, and I just happened to notice this from SACB.com. If you want to find out what the leftists are thinking, go to SACB.com, because that's the newspaper that I formerly used to work for in the 70s, where all things leftist are displayed in perpetuity 24/7 for the palatable and salacious consumption of all good California leftists everywhere. Here's a new article. California voters, they like the sanctuary state immigration law, but not everyone is on board. A majority of California voters support the sanctuary state law, a hot-button issue that divides large segments of the electorate and elicits strong opinions up and down the state. According to a new poll, Latinos, African Americans, young voters, and women clearly support the state law. They must remain in lockstep, united together, Heil, lockstep, goose-stepping all along the way. Men, white people, and voters over age 40 are split. Democrats favor it, but not quite as strongly as Republicans oppose it, according to data from the, wait for it, hope you're sitting down, from the latest UC Berkeley ICS poll of more than 4,000 voters. So you know if it came out of UC Berkeley, it's going to be completely unbiased and apolitical, as you well know. This is a very politically divisive issue, said Mark DiCamillo, poll director. For that reason, it's likely to rear its head in the upcoming elections, both congressional and statewide. Imagine that from SACB.com. Just had to mention that. But here's the article that I wanted to go to, because let's shift gears. Well, no, I'm sorry. Let's shift coasts. We're on the left coast right now, and we're talking about what's going to happen in our southern border. Let's go over to the northeast, if you will. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo demands feds cease and desist immigration crackdown. Because this is a state governor talking to the federal government and telling them with a frown on his face, and I'm sure he's got his best pouty lip out, cease and desist because I am Governor Cuomo and I order you to do so. You fucktard. Okay, that's 8 or 9. I forget. 25 cents in a hat. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo sent a cease and desist letter, build the wall, to federal immigration authorities Wednesday, ordering them to alert state and local police before they attempt any more arrests and demanding they leave some illegal immigrants alone altogether. He said he was issuing an executive order banning ICE. This is going to be so delicious. I can't wait to see how this comes out. I'm going to read that again because it really is. It is delicious. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo sent a cease and desist letter to federal immigration authorities Wednesday, ordering them to alert state and local police before they attempt any more arrests and demanding that they leave some illegal immigrants alone altogether. He was issuing an executive order banning. He demands and he bans ICE officers from making arrests at state prisons and jails, and ordered agencies not to ask about immigration status. He was hoping to deny federal authorities information that could lead to future deportations. Stop. This already happened in California, so Governor Andrew Cuomo doesn't have an original thought in his whole fucking brain. That's 9, quarter in a hat. Build a wall. And he says, I think it's time a state stood up to ICE. That's already happened in California. Do you read the newspaper, Governor Cuomo? Perhaps not. It's a time that a state stood up to ICE and made this case and let them know that people have rights, the governor said, wagging a finger, I'm sure, accusing the federal government of stoking terror of law-abiding residents. Residents? Hello, they're illegal by definition, if they're illegal, which means they've broken laws to get there, and apparently you don't mind breaking a law. Apparently, like Jerry Brown, you think that the 10th Amendment trumps everything, and the rest of the federal government, when it serves your purpose, well, they can go right to hell. That doesn't qualify. I'm not putting a quarter in the hat for that one, okay? That doesn't count. Just saying. His move puts New York back in stiff competition with California in the battle for the title of the country's premier sanctuary state. But it drew a stiff rebuke from the Homeland Security Department and Mr. Homan himself, who said as a native New Yorker he was insulted by the governor's attack on him and his people. So when that edict came out to the federal ICE officials over there, when they stopped laughing at the demand. You can blow it out your butt, Governor. You know what Homan did? Homan in California decided that he was going to conduct ICE raids in homes and in businesses, because you're not going to let him into your prisons. You're not going to let him into your jails. You can't stop him. You can't stop the federal government and ICE from going into the places where you least want these people disturbed. These people? What people do you mean? Illegals. That's what BZ says. Illegals. And it doesn't matter what color they are or what nation they're from. That is completely immaterial. We could have, let me make this clear. Quite clear. We could have France on our border. We could have Sweden on our border. And if it was in the state that Mexico is in right now, I wouldn't want those assholes in here either. So color has nothing to do with it. Ethnicity has nothing to do with it. Sovereignty of our border and control of who comes into this nation has everything to do with it. Governor Cuomo and Governor Brown. So like I said, what did Homan do when he was faced with that in California? He went into the places where he knew he could find the people, their homes, and their families, and the businesses. And as I said, that's exactly what the state of New York and the state of California, that's what they don't want, but they forced them there. Because where it used to be easier to go into a jail and say, okay, here's a detainer, here's a federal detainer and a hold that at one time, I know for a fact because I used to work the jails, we would honor in the state of California when I was working the jails. And it's no longer honored. They want a warrant for everyone, which means you have to build up a separate case. And the feds don't have the time or the people to do it because it's still illegal. Imagine that. Build a wall. Mr. Homan also signaled he's not going to cave. Of course he's not going to cave. He didn't cave. Leftists learn nothing. Of course he's not going to cave. He didn't cave in California. And so do you think because you're 2,300 miles away or 3,000 miles away in New York, you think Homan's going to go, oh, well, that's not on the left coast. Think of our federal people are going to have to travel so damn far from California over to New York. That may be what Governor Cuomo is thinking. We're not going to do anything about that. New York, you just move on. You can do whatever you want. Oh, we're afraid of Governor Cuomo. We're not going to do anything. He said he can. He said we can't. Yeah. Acting ICE Director Homan. He's like a honey badger. He don't give a fuck. Oh, that's 10. Quarter and a half. Build the wall. ICE will continue to protect New York communities against public safety and national security threats, and it is false and offensive for the governor to say otherwise. Okay, let's shift gears here just a little bit. Got 15, 16 minutes left to the end of the show. I've had a great time tonight, and there's nobody else in here, and nobody else is called, and it's just nice and quiet. It's just me and you and the tree, and it's late at night. Let's see, and it's 43 minutes after the hour on the far right coast, and it's 9:43 here in the saloon. People are tossing back drinks, having a good time. Thanks for everybody in chat. Thanks for listening in podcast. So I'm having a great time tonight, but let's shift gears just a bit. This reared its ugly head. I wasn't sure that it was going to, and it certainly doesn't fall into happy stories and good times in terms of that category. The Senate panel approves a bill to protect the special counsel. Protect the special counsel. Who do you mean? Oh, that's right, Bobby Mueller. The Senate Judiciary Committee approved legislation today, Thursday, to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller. In a 14-7 vote, the panel approved the bipartisan proposal that deeply divided Republicans on the committee. Can't understand why. With every committee Democrat backing the legislation, can't understand why. Only one Republican was needed to secure passage. So, put on your thinking caps right now. If you could conjure, who would it be? We're talking senators, okay? Who would it be that voted for the bill on the GOP side? So put on your thinking caps, and I'm going to give you some names, and thank God you're sitting down already, or you're cleaning your fish tank or balancing your checkbook, if you even have a checkbook anymore. Because if I tell you these names, I hope you're not gobsmacked, and I hope you don't swoon, and perhaps you need a fainting couch, and I hope you don't hurt yourself or bash the back of la cabeza when you hit it on the corner of a table. In the end, 4 Republicans voted for the bill. Who would they be? Senators Tom Tillis, North Carolina. Lindsey Graham, South Carolina. Chuck Grassley, Iowa. And Jeff Flake. What a perfect name. Jeff Flake, Arizona. Republican Senators Orrin Hatch, Utah. Mike Lee, Utah. John Cornyn, Texas. Mike Crapo, bad name, Idaho. Ben Sass, Nebraska. John Kennedy, Louisiana. And Ted Cruz, Texas, opposed it. The vote marks the first time Congress has advanced legislation to formally protect Mueller from being, this is the goal, to protect Mueller from being fired by President Trump, who has railed against him in public and reportedly talked in private of dismissing him, but after all this time has still not. So isn't it interesting, all the people that you thought were rhinos, well, this kind of proves that they were, right? It sure as hell does. Here's another story that I kind of enjoy. For all you people who are leftists and who happen to live, like me, like BZ, in a high-tax state. The GOP's SALT cap may speed the exodus from high-tax states, a report says. Over the past decade, about 3.5 million Americans have relocated from high-tax blue states like California and those in the Northeast to low-tax red states like Texas and Arizona, and the change is likely to accelerate. That's called people voting with their pocketbooks, which translates to voting with their feet and their vehicles and their U-Hauls. By the way, thought I should just throw this out here. It's been already discovered that people who are renting U-Hauls in, I don't know, say the Bay Area or Silicon Valley, and wanting to drive them one way to, I don't know, let's say Texas, are paying thousands and thousands and thousands, literally thousands and thousands of dollars over the price that is charged from someone wanting to drive a U-Haul from the same distance, say, from Texas to California. Imagine that. I see the look of being gobsmacked on your Gesicht right now. So says Arthur Laff and Stephen Moore, co-authors of a report from the American Legislative Exchange Council in a Wall Street Journal essay. They say that the Republican Party tax bill's cap on the deduction for state and local taxes, SALT, could ramp up the pace by which Americans relocate in their own economic interest. Do you think BZ might possibly be eyeballing leaving California? Not necessarily for this region, but just for more reasons than I can delineate in the time left on my show. Laffer and Moore estimate that both California and New York, incredibly high-tax states, but you're not surprised at that, will lose on net about 800,000 people over the next 3 years, roughly double from the previous 3 years, while Connecticut, New Jersey, and Minnesota combined with to lose about 500,000 people in the same period. Let's do what BZ again calls the logical extension. Most of the people that are moving out are roughly middle class, because otherwise how could they afford to move? So they must have a sufficient amount of funding to be able to afford a moving truck or a U-Haul or a large company like what used to be Beacons or Lions moving vans, something like that, to leave the state to go to to go to another state, which means that they have a couple of nickels to rub together, which means that they're probably middle class, have a job, are contributing to society, and moreover, are taxpayers. So what you've got in California and New York is an exodus of tax-paying people from these states that are taking their wealth in whatever form it may exist to other states. And these are the same states that want more immigrants that are not producers. There are parasites and there are hosts in California and in New York. Guess what? In these two states, again, because of this SALT, it looks like the hosts are starting to leave, and the hosts are starting to get fed up. As the migration speeds up, it will raise real estate values in low-tax states and hurt them in high-tax states. Note to everyone in New York and California. Trust me, California will turn to shit before, I'm sorry, that's 11, quarter and a half. California will turn that way before New York will. So if you want to leave the state while you can still sell your house, you might want to consider doing it in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years before it becomes increasingly difficult, unless you're a massively wealthy individual, and that's an entirely separate real estate strata. You might want to consider moving earlier before all them U-Hauls are all taken. As the migration speeds up, it will raise real estate values in low-tax states and hurt them in high-tax states, the authors said. In states like California, where the top income rate exceeds 13%, people are able to deduct that tax on a federal return, but now the deduction for SALT will be capped at $10,000 per family. Although 90% of taxpayers, and this benefits, like President Trump said, the guy with the dead orange cat on top of his head, and it's been proven, the tax cuts benefit 90% of taxpayers because they're unaffected by the change. High earners in places with hefty income taxes. Hefty in California is not a plastic bag. It's your tax. Such as California, New York, Minnesota, and New Jersey would bear more costs of their state government under the new SALT cap, according to Laffer and Moore. Do you think that might be another motivating factor for you to say, fuck it, I'm leaving? I'm sorry, that's 12. Quarter and a half. Build the wall. Fox News previously reported that while the law containing sweeping tax rate cuts for businesses and individuals, taxpayers in high-tax states like those in the Northeast are expected to take a hit from the SALT change. Another reason. I got to play this. This will probably end up being my last story. Maxine Waters, the person that I think in all of Congress, and I haven't done a physical study, and I don't have the software to do it, and you know me in software. I'm not that particularly facile in software, hardware, and technology for that matter in the first place. But if I were a guy that could like monitor the size and dimensions, like facial recognition, if I had a software program that could prove me right, and I'm throwing this out there for your consideration, because I believe that at least in all of Congress, Maxine Waters has the widest and the largest mouth that I think I have ever seen on a Congress critter, ever. Now, I can't say this with proof. I don't have physical proof, but I'm just doing this on a visual, in terms of visual acuity and what I've seen demonstrated in the past by Maxine Waters. And of course, she's a nut. And guess what? Best yet, she's a Southern California nut. Woo-hoo! She's from this state. So she just told Donald Trump that it's just time to get out. She had a little temper tantrum. The Time 100 honoree, she told the magazine during its ceremony that she wants Trump to just get out of office. Go, Maxine.
If you had to give some advice to President Trump, what advice would you give him?
Please resign so that I won't have to keep up this fight.
of your, having to be impeached.
Holy crap, her mouth is larger than an A7 intruder.
Because I don't think you deserve to be there. Just get out.
Thank God there aren't any sailors on a carrier deck that are getting close to that thing. Donald Trump, just get out. Damn. I still have another 30 tabs open, and the show is concluding. But you know what? I think I'll be back. And I think I'll be back next week. And I think I'll be back next week on a Tuesday. Because if you thought you'd heard or seen the last of me, the last of the bloviating Zeppelin, if I haven't been killed yet, I probably won't be killed over this weekend. And the chances are high, and the chances are good, that you'll probably see me next Tuesday.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, where I broadcast behind enemy lines in occupied California. And I'm still 2 miles from the Bill Mill, the locus of evil in California, the capital, Sacramento, where late at night like this, the sulfur and the brimstone is still seeping into our studio. How sad is that? Promotional consideration by Boeing, the Boeing Corporation. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And Pratt & Whitney engines thrust you can trust. Thanks to my Kettle 1 KC-135 refueling team with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks to you for listening live. Thanks to you for being in chat. Thanks to you for being in podcast, listening in podcast. You all have a great weekend. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.